evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to this particular webinar. My name is Luke Govender, and I hail from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition at the South African government. I'm your chair and moderator for this particular session. Welcome. Just a couple of housekeeping announcements. The first is that this particular session will be recorded, and for the Mozambican participants, you can get the Portuguese simultaneous translation via the menu icon at the bottom of your screen. Obrigado for that. Participants, videos and microphones are switched off in the platform. If yours is on, I do appeal to you to please turn it off, so both your video and your mic, just so that we don't get feedback as well. Some of the polls are going up, and we do appeal to you to please respond to that. It does give us a sense of what is required in terms of subject matter, and of course, what needs to be done in terms of subsequent webinars as well. Also, to please put any questions in the Q&A zone so that we can deal with some of those questions at a later stage. In fact, there will be a Q&A at the end of each of the presentations. So after the webinar, we will also request and appeal to you to complete a short survey. If you could indulge us in that as well. Perhaps, I could then kick off with some introductory remarks. I think the video that you may have seen earlier on certainly highlighted that COVID-19 has affected the lives and the livelihoods of many entrepreneurs, especially women, more so of those who are in the informal sector. Therefore, to enable these entrepreneurs to brave the COVID impasse, it is necessary to assist businesses to acquire the necessary skills and information to be resilient. The importance of digital skills has been ever increasing, but the pandemic has brought urgency to the fore. The digital skills that were considered to be additional skills have now become one of the necessary skills to possess in the export ecosystem in order to stay competitive in the global market. So as companies shift their businesses to e-commerce platforms due to COVID, women entrepreneurs have struggled to develop their online and digital skills, especially those concerned with marketing or selling on the internet, or even selling their products on e-commerce websites. So, shocks or disasters like COVID has laid bare the need to leverage digital technologies to develop a concerted export strategy and to consider targeted and diversified export markets. So in order to capture value from digital trade, digital entrepreneurship must become the central focus. More so, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is a flagship project of the African Union's Agenda 2063, and that talks to the Africa we want. And it seeks to provide a comprehensive and mutually beneficial trade agreement among member states of the African Union, covering, of course, trade in goods and services, investment, intellectual property rights, and competition policy. However, the second phase of negotiations includes digital trade, amongst other elements, of course. The protocols on women and e-commerce are key to ensure that the African Continental Trade Agreement and Trade Governance Agenda contributes meaningfully in a competitive digital economy. Both the future of Africa and global trade depend on providing entrepreneurs, especially women, and innovators the tools they need to realize their business dreams. Having said that, the Trade Forward Southern Africa aims to support exporters to overcome the information access barrier and possibly the digital divide by providing a platform that houses real-time and relevant export information on a central platform. That is the TFSA Trade and Information Hub. And conducting these webinars on how to use and navigate those resources to find information on potential markets and buyers, combined with rules, regulations, and standards, in order to comply with in those targeted markets, hopefully brings export success. Today's session will focus on using the International Trade Centre's tools in conjunction with UK tools to target export markets in the UK. Indeed, participants will recognize the enormous value of these tools and facilities shown in this webinar for exporters and, of course, for business support organizations. I would like to hand over to Rob Moody to do a live demonstration on some of those tools. I just see that we have a poll up as well. Perhaps you'd want to answer that before we move into Rob's presentation as well. I think you have a few minutes to do that, and then we can move on to Rob. Thank you, Rob.
Thanks very much, Luke, for that excellent introduction, setting the context for this. I'm just going to share my screen now. Those of you who've been on our previous webinars will have got comfortable and will have seen our existing website that is up there at the moment. And we've received a lot of interest and attention, and it's been getting a lot of traction. So we've actually just recently, although this program has only been running for just on a year now, we've just completed a major revamp of our website with much richer and deeper information about our various work. But just to assure you that the links to the information sources that we were talking about are still there. So these can be accessed via any of the country links, as well as on the home page. You'll recognize these headings from the previous webinars. Just give you a quick run through of some of the things in the Trade Hub website before switching over to the tools. So in each country, you click on each country, it'll come up, bit of background, and again, the same tools are there. So anybody accessing through the country pages will find these tools there as well. We felt that we needed to make it much easier for people to come through to the tools through multiple different entry points in the Hub's website. And we're covering information about the specific value chain work we're doing in aquaculture, fruits, nuts, and vegetables, condiments and high value specialty foods, cosmetics and natural ingredients, and in South Africa, green technology and resources. You'll see also we've enriched the offering to women in trade. There's a lot of information there, specific actions, and again, links through to particular tools that are available to women specifically. On the resources page, you'll see we've loaded a lot more resources, and we will be loading more resources, quick guides, video guides, and info sheets on various topics. And you'll see again, these links are there to the various tools that we brought into the Hub. From exactly as Luke was saying, the International Trade Centre has got valuable tools there. The EU access to markets links and My Trade Assistant links, as well as the UK Trade Help Desk. We call it the UK Trade Help Desk, although the UK does have a different name for it, but we just felt that business in the region would understand the export trade help desk. And you'll see these links go through to all the knowledge guides, the export toolkit resources, and the reference library. So you can link through to it through all of these links at the top of the page, as well as each of these pages having links through to these tools and resources. The first thing is to make sure that people are aware of these tools out there and how valuable they are. And just to quickly show you how to navigate through them as well. Now, one extra thing that we are building at the moment is you'll see on the home page, there is a link through to that name is going to change. We're just going to call it export training. Between last night when I was setting this up on the beta website and this morning, it has gone live, and the Portuguese will be available shortly as well. There are a couple of tweaks that we still need to do, and once that is done, this will be all be available in Portuguese for our users in Mozambique. So if you clicked on this link to the export training, it will bring you through to a learning management system, and you would click to get started, and you would be able to register yourself so that this learning will be available to businesses across the whole of the Southern African region on a 24/7, 365 days of the year basis. And it's being built at the moment in collaboration with the International Trade Institute of Southern Africa, which is a premier training institute across the whole region. They've been in business of training exporters for more than 20 years, and we've been working with them to convert some of their training material into material that is available online. You'll see the first 3 modules are up, and the next module, the 4th module, will be up at the end of next week. And thereafter, there will be another 3 modules going up. So in total, 7 modules for exporter training by the end of November, beginning of December. And I would strongly encourage everybody who's new to exporting, or even who has been exporting but hasn't had any training, to go through and utilize these training resources. We've been piloting it out through an organization called Future Females, and the feedback we've had so far on the content and usability functions is extremely good. Everybody's been saying it's enormously valuable training that is being provided there. And as we move through the tools, you'll see that on the home page, as well as through the links, we have converted the export readiness training that was simply a Word document, the export readiness assessment checker, sorry, that was simply a Word document, has now been converted to digital. It's exactly as Luke says, everything needs to be much more digital these days than it was. And as you go through that, it will give you hints and tips on how you need to improve. And indeed, the learning modules, this learning module 2, also has an export readiness checker in it. And that will also give you guidance on where you are falling short and the kind of strengthening you need to do on your company. So with that, once you've completed an export readiness checker to see is your business in a state of readiness, obviously your next thing is to start thinking about your export marketing venture. And this is where the tools from the International Trade Center are linked through in all of these links that we've built into the website. I have pre-loaded these pages quickly. It does require you, if you want the depth of information, I would strongly encourage everybody to register on the International Trade Center's tools. The links are there on the website. It's a very, very simple registration process. Essentially, just ask for your name and your email. And if you do register, then you can get to the deeper information. If you don't register, you get some of the sort of surface information, if I can put it that way, in tools. But as soon as you register, you get the much, much richer information. Now, that's a registration on the International Trade Center's website. Our own Trade Hub website does not require you to register. You link through to all of these tools. And for the ITC in particular, you need to register there. But I would seriously recommend that anybody who's looking to export or is already exporting, looking to find new markets and research markets, should register on the websites so that you can get these tools. Now, I've opened up just a couple of examples because the focus today is on the United Kingdom market. Those of you who've been on our previous webinars, you'll have seen how the tools will help you identify markets globally, as well as for specific markets. Now, for business support organizations that are looking to identify what the opportunities are from your particular country, it does give you that assistance for a particular product as well as the range of products. So for example, I just pulled up here Botswana. What are the opportunities for export from Botswana to the United Kingdom? You could change that to another country, or you can make that globally to identify which are the target markets that a business support organization, whether it is an export agency or a chamber of commerce that is doing a drive to support exporters, you can identify what are the key products that these tools have identified as having the highest potential for export, either globally or to a particular country from your country. So for example, I just used here Botswana to the United Kingdom, and naturally it pulls up. And this data is, it goes through a function of tracking what existing exports from your country are and what the existing imports of the target country are. And it matches to see how much more the country of import is importing from around the world versus what is it is importing from your particular country. And it goes through a process of also identifying what are the barriers that might reduce the potential for an export, as well as the actual physical distance that you are located from a potential market. And it goes through that process and identifies which are the products with the highest potential for export from your country to a target country. You could put it for global markets, and it will identify also what those global markets are. But as I say, in this example, I pulled up for Botswana to United Kingdom, and it shows diamonds naturally is a very high export item from Botswana, and the UK is importing a lot of diamonds, so it comes up as the #1. But then it identifies all the other products. And just from a previous visit that I did to Botswana, identifying companies that could export, it was very interesting to find that there are a couple of companies doing ignition wiring harnesses for vehicles, and that comes up strongly. There's a good potential to increase the exports of those from Botswana into the UK. If you clicked on that item specifically, you can see, or you just hover over it, it actually tells you what the value of the additional export potential is that Botswana could extract from exporting to the UK. And you'll see there's an untapped export potential of another $4.3 million from Botswana to the UK. And you can go through another one that comes up clearly, that is there's good production in Botswana of fabrics, terry fabrics. There's a manufacturer of batteries there, coaxial cables. So you can see that it brings this up. Now, that is of great interest for export agencies and for business support organizations to identify particular products to focus on. And any individual exporter is not interested in other products from other companies. They want to know, what is the potential for my product and where are those markets? So you could change you just enter the product here. It will search it by the words in the description. But if you happen to know the HS code, the tariff code, you can put that in and it will bring it up. So for Botswana, I just pick those wiring harness sets again, and you'll see that the major market that they should target is in fact South Africa. And I believe those manufacturers were in fact set up for supply into the South African automotive production industry. Second after South Africa is the United States, because the United States imports a lot. And third market, almost equivalent, is the United Kingdom. And you'll see the number tally. So there's $4.3 million of untapped export potential that Botswanan manufacturers could utilize in, enhancing their drive to export automotive wiring harness sets into the manufacturing industry in the United Kingdom. And we'll talk later on about what the duties, customs duties, taxes, and regulations are, and how you can find these tools. We're very fortunate to have Tom Dolan from the UK Department of International Trade. He will look at that very shortly. Now, there's another tool that we've linked to in the hub. They're very easy to find in the hub. You pointed directly to these tools. And I said to a company in South Africa the other day that reached out to us about exporting dried fruits and nuts from South Africa. It's a major producer in South Africa. They've got retail outlets across the whole country, and they are now looking through agencies that they've appointed to find markets in the United Kingdom. And I promised them that I would use this as a sort of a demonstration also to show how these tools can be used to identify market potential. This is again the Global Trade Help Desk from the International Trade Center. And you just pull in the HS code or the descriptions, you can change that, and you put it in for any product you like and to any country. These tools focus on the global market, but in this case, I've selected this specific product going to the United Kingdom specifically. And you'll see it brings up how attractive is the United Kingdom's market as a global importer compared to others around the world. Their total imports are $50 million. This is all put in dollar terms. It is the fourth biggest importer of this category of product. You can change that category to your own category, and it will tell you where the UK ranks as a global importer, and it will tell you what the market perspective is from your specific country as you change the country, whether it's Mozambique, Botswana, Lesotho, Eswatini, or Namibia. It will tell you, compared to your country, what is the market perspective for your country in the UK. And it shows you here that in this case, South Africa has 22% of the import share, and the market growth is 5%, which is very nice growth. There is at least another $1.4 million worth of exports that could be tapped by this company in exporting to the United Kingdom. It does give you a little trend graph of where the market trend has been, and you can see that it took a bit of a dip, and that is probably due to the COVID situation. As trade got hammered, you'll see that change there. Now, hopefully this can be made up, and particularly this company would be able to contribute to increasing the exports from the region to the United Kingdom. It does also bring up what the UK import tariffs are. This is sort of overall. Tom Dolan will go into more detail on the very specific UK trade help desk that has been set up that will tell you exactly what the duty is from your country to the UK. But you can get more information about the tariffs here through the ITC help desk if you click on that link. I'm not going to go through them now because of tight time. It does give you very quickly some information about the export licensing and standards applicable in South Africa before export happens, as well as to the United Kingdom. But as I say, the UK Trade Help Desk will give you the information in a much more authoritative and detailed manner. You if you're looking to access particular niche markets, so for example, fair trade or organic markets, it does show some of the rules and regulations that you need to comply with in order to tap into those niche markets as opposed to the general market, if you can put it that way. Interestingly enough, it does give you, and this is very important for people to realize as you approach exports, export is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's tough and it's hard work, but it does give you an indication of the effort and the cost that will be involved. This is just on getting your documentation in order, that it can take you 160 hours, and that could cost you $1,300 in doing all the documentation that is required. And it does give you a link to a business directory. I'll show you a little bit more about that shortly. Some trade finance providers, trade promotion organizations, that is most likely, I haven't clicked on it, but that is most likely the Department of Trade and Industry and Competition that Luke represents, being the South African focused organization, and the intellectual property officer. So if you are branding your product, you need to make sure that your trademark and your design of your branding is registered. Otherwise, you can have people copying it. If you decide that there are other markets that you'd also look at, very conveniently, it brings up that you have other potential markets that you could also look at. It's never a good idea to look at too many markets. It's much better to focus on a particular market. And as I say, those tools in the beginning from the ITC help you to identify, and this also helps you to identify which are the best markets to be targeting. Now, the identifying trade prices, you always need to know. We brought a link into that, and you can go through to the ITC trade tools. And this is where I say it's important that you register with them, because it will bring up these tools. You just enter your product category, what market you're identifying, you put the country in as an importer, so United Kingdom as an importer, and it's just refreshed. But if you click on this column here, you'll see it brings up the unit value in US dollars per unit that the United Kingdom is importing. So you can get a comparison of what other supplying countries are exporting to, or their product is being imported to the UK at what unit price per value per unit of measure of that product. So in this case, it's per ton. This at least gives you a quick rule of thumb of where you might lie. So if you've done your calculations of your exporting, what the costs are to get it to the United Kingdom, you would be able to see how competitive you are compared to other supplying countries to the UK. The other element is finding buyers, which is a crucial element for most exporters. And again, these tools that we've linked through here will bring you to this facility in the ITC. Sorry, it's just refreshed again. And it will bring up you can put in there, it's the same page, and you just change, you click on companies, or you change it to companies there. And for example, you'll see importers and exporters of food and beverages. If you click on that link, it will now bring up a list of companies in the UK. And again, this, because we're focusing on the UK today, I've focused on the UK companies for here. But the same thing, you can change that country to whichever country you're targeting. You can change that to your product, and it will bring up a list of companies. And for example, if you click on the link, any one of these links, it will bring up a quick window, and it will tell you where the company is situated in Maidenhead. It will give you there, as well as here, a link to the company's website. It will give you a contact name and the position of the person to contact, and you'll see it even gives you a telephone number. And most of these companies' websites will have a contact page of some sort and contact details for you to contact. So this is extraordinarily valuable. Companies really battle to find out who can you contact to buy your product in a particular market. And this gives you that access to lists of companies that you can contact. This information you'll see is drawn from the Compass directory. Any exporter will tell you that the Compass directory is the global top-end directory of companies involved in international trade. So with that, as I said, the website was beta version last night, and overnight it has gone live. So if you go to our link website, TF for trade forward, tfsouthernafrica.org, just type that in your search bar, and this new hub website that went live overnight last night will come up for you, and you'll find that information linked through in all of the tabs at the top, as well as in each of the country tabs, and you'll see it there on our home page as well. Now, just lastly, the link will also bring you, because we're focusing today on the UK market, it will bring you through to this gov.uk website where what we call the Trade Help Desk is positioned. And I will now hand you over to Tom Dolan, who we are very, very privileged today to have on. I can't tell you how privileged, because Luke is the man behind this. It's very seldom that you can ever draw through to the real source of information and knowledge about this. So with that, let me hand over to Luke. Sorry, to Tom, my apologies.
I'm feeling the pressure now. I really am. Thank you. Let me just share my own screen and start my own presentation. Hello, everybody. And I must apologise for the Portuguese audience and the Portuguese translator, because I do speak quite quickly. So I'm going to try and remember not to. But thank you very much for your time. I think we are a little bit further on in the exporter journey. We are, by the way, can you see my screen? Hopefully you can.
Yes, it's up there, Tom.
Brilliant stuff, brilliant. So we're at the stage where you are saying, okay, I've decided the UK is a market, I want to actually start doing the business. And I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the sorts of things, the sorts of online support that is available from the UK market. So some things we're going to cover. As I'm going to talk a bit about who I am and how my team works. I'm going to talk a little bit about the UK government's digital services and how we have a user-centered approach to that. I will talk about some exceptions we have to our overall plans, and then I'll get into the core of talking about what you call the UK Trade Help Desk. And because we're talking about how you'd use this thing, I'm going to be doing a live demo, and we will go through a simple scenario where we're not talking about any FTAs or preferential arrangements at all, just so you can see the overall layout and journey. I'm going to talk a little bit about the complications that Northern Ireland adds into the mix there for businesses dealing with us. And I'll then talk a bit about some of the complexities of trying to find your products and turning them into commodity codes. And then finally, we'll look at the preferential arrangements that are available under the trade agreement and how you'd see the data from those in there. I'll then also touch on another service that that the UK government runs, which is Trade Tariff, which is a bit more like an encyclopedia. And I'll explain why that is relevant, but another thing you need to know about later on. And then finally, there'll be some time for some questions. So I work as a product manager in our digital data and technology team. So I'm not a project manager. I sit between what the Department for International Trade wants to achieve with its policies, what is technically feasible, and what we think is right for our users to make sure we're building user-facing services. So we build these services that are based around user needs, not just government needs. And this is the team. We've got Nick, who's our designer, Kate, who is our delivery manager. There's me, but in summer. And then we've got Abigail, who is our user researcher, and Kevin and Santino, who are our two developers. And we're a small team that maintain some of these services. But we're part of this bigger journey of what government's trying to do. And since 2012, we have been centralising all government information into one big domain, which is gov.uk. And we have closed lots and lots of other smaller department websites, because as a user, you shouldn't have to care how government works. You just want to get stuff done. And we have refocused the gov.uk website around user needs and what users are trying to get done, for the sake of UK users, but it has benefits for others as well. And so because it's kind of task focused, it's a lot of the content is organized around user needs. So if you go into the business section, it will talk a lot about how you set up businesses, and then it will give you key guides on all those various tasks you might need to do. So everything is clustered around journeys and tasks. So if you need guidance around how the UK government does things, you should find everything that you need inside here. And if you have a process that takes multiple steps and involves multiple services you have to work with, then we have step-by-step guides for lots of the more complicated transactions you might need to do. And that will then lead you into our individual services. And the services are run by the departments who are specialists in them. But because we're trying to focus on what users are trying to do, all of our services are verbs rather than nouns. So they are all named after what you try and do with them. And this is part of our digital service standard that all our government services have to meet, which is about making sure that the services are really easy to use. They join up a whole problem and they hide lots of the kind of complexity of government, and keep everything safe and secure, and so that you can trust it. So when you're dealing with the transactions, they should all work in a very similar way. So this big journey we've been on has a lot of benefits when you're an overseas business looking into the UK government, because as part of that unification, virtually everything you need to know is now online in one space. And we have consistent design across all of our services. So if you know how to do one thing, it will work the same way in different places. So you only have to learn how our website behaves once in general. The services are named around the task people are trying to do. So they are called things like register my company, register an employee, submit a tax return. So they are all easy to search for with search terms if you need to do anything. So you should find things easy to find. And also, absolutely everything is accessible. So it works with screen readers and speech readers. It all works on mobile phones. And if you have low bandwidth, most services should still work without JavaScript turned on. So they should all be very, very accessible and open to everybody to make sure they're usable. And we've got a bunch of teams that are sitting there watching these services and are studying the analytics to make sure that people can complete their tasks quickly and efficiently. And they're monitoring these as they go to improve it. So we've got hundreds of really good online services, but we're still learning and adapting what we're doing from real world usage. And in practical terms, what that means is that you don't actually have to be in the UK to do the majority of tasks. Some of the language in the services will be assuming you're in the UK, but because we have been working so hard to digitize so many of our transactions and so much of our information and link it together into journeys, hopefully we have managed to hide a lot of the structure of the UK government in terms of how you work with us. I said there was an exception. So gov.uk is about how you do things. It is the stuff you must do. It is the information you must know. But we do have some promotional websites. So if you're thinking about how you might work with the UK, then we have a network of people that can help you set up in the UK. So the great.gov.uk is our external facing platform for businesses that might want to set up offices here. So it's worth knowing that exists. But let's look at some of the services. So just a reminder, we're now up to talking about the UK Trade Help Desk. And we're going to go through a simple non-free trade scenario. I'm going to talk about the Northern Ireland Protocol. We're going to talk then about commodity codes, then having built on that, we can do the preferential arrangements, and I'll just go through all of that now. Okay, so one thing I do want to say about gov.uk is, although we have centralised a lot of the information, we do have a section in here that does actually explain how government works. So like, if you want to find the Intellectual Property Office or the Product Safety Office, you can go and look at the long list of agencies and public bodies. So although we hide it for most transactions, it is possible to see the structure of government if you need to speak to somebody about something by looking in this section here. Anyway, let's look at, although you call it the UK Trade Help Desk, our service is a verb, which is look up tariffs, taxes and rules to trade with the UK, because that's how people would search for it on Google. So let's start really at the beginning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a country that we don't have a free trade agreement with, and with a really simple product to find. So we're going to go for Brazil, and I'm going to search for a malaria kit. So if we're trying to import malaria kit from Brazil, so we've got basically search results here. So we've got some groupings of the product, so where it fits into the overall commodity hierarchy. I'll explain why that matters in a minute. But we've got one result in individual products. So here we have a malaria diagnostic test kit from a non-free trade agreement country. So what we can do here is we can see the kind of the commodity notes, how that is defined if we need them. And down here we have got that we don't have a trade agreement with Brazil here in the UK. And so we have non-preferential terms. But in this case, the third country duty is 0, so it is tariff-free. When you try and sell the goods in the UK, you'll have to pay a sales tax of 20%, and that will be payable when you clear customs. And there are no particular rules of origin. However, we do have some regulations that apply. And so here we can see in this section, we've got links to lots of the regulations around medicines that are to do with these types of goods. And this links through to kind of the raw legislation, so you can read the real kind of the actual law that applies here if you need to. Often it is worth starting with the introductory text, because that will explain to you why you want to carry on reading this long document. So it sets out normally what's in that key document there. A lot of this legislation the UK was part of creating with the EU, but we also have some rules that only apply to the UK in particular cases. So these are rules that are about our standards. They are similar to other countries that are in the EU, but you will find those in their own section here. So you've got the overall areas of the legislation we look at in bringing these goods into the UK from Brazil. So that's the basic version of the page. However, because getting goods into Northern Ireland is a little bit more complicated because they're at risk of entering the EU, if you're bringing goods into Northern Ireland, you have to also be able to check that you know what the EU tariffs are. In this case, it's still 0. And you might have to look up the EU's product-specific regulations as well. So if their regulations are any different, then you need to look up on the EU Access to Market site to find those. So that's where you can find their information about importing these goods. So in Northern Ireland, the EU's regulations apply. And if the goods are at risk of going into the main part of Ireland, then the higher EU tariff will apply if it does. But there are some really good links here to explaining whether or not those goods will apply. And there's also a trader support service that will help you answer any key questions around that. So effectively, if your goods might be going into Northern Ireland, you have to compare the two tariffs and the two sets of rules to make sure you're fully compliant. Okay, let's do so that's a kind of a simple version of a search. Let's do something new. I want to explain why commodity codes are a bit annoying, and it's because they are a legacy of trade policy. They are not a human taxonomy. They're not a human structure of how goods fit together. And I'll show you some interesting examples of why that would be. So let's say we're working with, we're coming from Eswatini, and we want to look up trousers. We want to sell some textiles we've been making. if you look in the commodity code catalogue, there are hundreds and hundreds of items called trousers. And the way they are all ends of the commodity tree. Because the key differences between them are actually much further up in the hierarchy. So searching for trousers is not useful as a way of picking the right trousers. So here you'd want to say, these are they knitted or are they not knitted? They're not knitted, they're made of they're crocheted. And are they for women or men? And so this is how you have to start your classification journey for a complicated product like trousers that has lots and lots of entries different defined in different ways further up the commodity classification tree. Another good example is if we were selling kind of specialist pedigree dogs, and trying to export those. One of the problems is that there is no actual item called dogs in the commodity code list. They've never been important enough in trade policy to have their own particular worries. There's never been any regulations around them that mean that we need to do import controls on them. So dogs are actually part of other live animals. And then you need to carry on classifying further. So they're other live animals, they are mammals, and they are not primates, they are not whales, they are not camels, they are not rabbits, therefore they are other. So dogs are other in the commodity code. So you always have to think about how you would classify your goods is a really important part of this process. And there are some things where, like if you want to build a new place to sit outside your house in the evening and you want decking, then there are no entries for that. There are no similar terms. You will struggle to find these things. And what you will have to do in this case is you'll have to look at the goods by category section, and you'll have to browse through things being made of wood, wood articles made of wood, and you will then be kind of slowly classifying into wood sawn and things like that to be able to find the right goods. So you can, in some cases you can search, sometimes you will need to search and then classify, and sometimes you will need to classify your goods to find where they would fit, because there isn't one clear description for them. In the UK, we have a service that I will show you in a moment, which is here, finding commodity codes for goods for imports and outputs in the UK. So if you do a search for this, there is a service that Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs run, which is that they administer certain aspects of the border. And in here, they will say they have guidance on goods that are difficult to classify, but they also say they can give you a general idea within 5 days of your goods if you can't find it yourself. And if you really, really need to know very specifically, they have a way of getting a legally binding decision on what your commodity codes are. So it's possible to get our border people to give you a legal definition of what how your goods will be classified. So that's worth knowing. Okay, so I've talked a little bit about commodity codes being difficult. Let's do another search now. So let's say we're going to be we want to send some sparkling wine from South Africa. Okay, sparkling wine. And we are going to look in here because there's only 2 results, as opposed to there being 4 in here. Sparkling wine, this is great. And this is just going to load. And here we will see that we have to classify a little bit further. It's not from a particular geographical area, but it is made of Chardonnay grapes. And so we will click other varietal wines. And while this loads, here we have the trade status that shows we've got a trade agreement. And we're able to show you what the third country duty is, which is £26 per hectolitre, that's 100 litres. But because of the trade agreement, we have a tariff preference that means that the rate on this will be 0 as long as you meet the rules of origin. And I'll show you the rules of origin further down. We talk a little bit about how you actually create the value of your goods for the UK. So that's worth looking at. And we also have lots of definitions of the terms that are available in this table, so you can, to help make that easier to understand. We have the taxes that apply, so 20% sales tax applies, but there are also different rates of duty that are payable, additional taxes that are charged based on how much alcohol there is in the wine. So you'll also have to pay these when bringing them in. There are also other controls that apply at the border. So in terms of what restrictions there are to bring it into free circulation, it gives you things like here that if you're bringing in less than 100 litres, you're allowed to bring it in without any other paperwork. But you may have to provide other certificates here. So you need to do a Google search on what these different documents are and how they are declared to make sure you can get through our border safely. We mentioned organic products earlier on. So there are particular certificates that you will need to deal with those. So that's worth knowing about. And then finally, we have the rules of origin. So these are the rules that need to be followed in order to make sure that you get you meet the rules that mean you get the lower tariff rate. And if you can't show that, then you will be paying that level per hectoliter. Where we can, I'm just going to bring another thing in from my screen. We will try and show if you've got sort of technical definitions of rules of origin, we will try and link out to how other elements of that are defined. So you won't be sitting there trying to work out how to search in multiple windows if you get a more complicated set of rules of origin that's got references in it. So I'll get rid of that again. Where is it? Here I am, sorry, too many tabs. Finally, we have the regulations. Now, it's worth knowing that because of what I said about commodity codes not matching exactly to products, there will sometimes be more regulations here than actually apply. So you can see this here, that we have some rules in here about Scotch whisky. Obviously that doesn't apply to wine, but because you can see that goods don't always fit nicely, this will have been put at a safer level higher up to make sure it catches all alcoholic beverages. Because it becomes very hard to maintain if we've got continually changing commodity codes. So please use some common sense about whether or not you think this is likely to apply to your product, because some of the regulations are set at a higher level to be on the safe side. And as we say, we try to keep this up to date, but it's a moving target, so we explain that there. Again, you can see that if we are trying to bring our sparkling wine into Northern Ireland, this page will be slightly different again, because we will have the UK tariffs, the EU tariffs. The EU has their own measures that will need to be checked at customs, but the EU also has their own rules of origin that you need to look at on the Access to Markets website. So that's worth knowing about as well. So that is basically the things you need to know when you're working through our tools. Is basically how you can go through and search for different types of commodities. I feel I should also talk about one important aspect of this, which is that it is designed for using now, today. So the idea is that we are simplifying some of this information to make it easier for you to do a transaction now. And there is another service called Trade Tariff, which is the bigger encyclopedia of information. And this is everything to do with the tariff that you could possibly want to look up, to do with the actual kind of rates at the border. And I'll tell you a little bit about why that's different from our tool. So, so we've covered, hopefully, as you've seen, the kind of the trade help desks and like the simple non-FTA scenario, so we can use it. How the Northern Ireland Protocol adds some extra issues of other regulations that might apply or other processes you have to go through. We talked about commodity codes being awkward and how that has a knock-on effect for adding regulations to particular goods. I showed you how to find the preferential arrangements. So Trade Tariffs Encyclopedia. So it's a bit older than the tool that I just showed you. and it's owned by Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, and it brings together lots of different data sets. So in Department for International Trade, we look after the tariff, but HMRC look after the taxes and the excise, and they bring all that stuff together into one service, which means that it's bigger and it's not as user-friendly. But if you need to see an overview of all the tariffs for a particular good all on one page for all markets, then it's really useful for that. It also shows when tariffs change. So for some agricultural goods like tomatoes, we have a different tariff at different times of the year, and that will be shown inside the trade tariff tool here. They don't have any regulatory information, and their rules of origin isn't as up to date as ours. But if you need to know that what is the tariff going to be for multiple countries or over time, then trade tariff is the service you need to look at. A bit about our plans. We're updating some functionality to make the regulation side easier to maintain inside government. We're going to carry on updating it when we get new trade agreements and when tariffs change. A lot of commodity codes are changing a little bit on the 1st of January, and our service will adapt to reflect that. But it's also worth knowing that in line with government wanting to try and simplify things based around user needs, there is a project called the Single Trade Window that is happening, which looks to try and bring all of the customs declaration and certification around agricultural safety into one service, and eventually that will take over from what we've been doing here, although all the work we've picked up from users will be fed into that as well. So there will be a thing called Single Trade Window coming at some point that will bring all of this all of the transactions and guidance together into one service. But finally, I just say, if you're using this, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you find easy and what you find hard. So at the top of the page, it says your feedback will help us improve this service. So if you've got things you need to know or tell us about your experience using it, please do get in touch.